Okay, so tonight, or this afternoon, what I'm planning to cover is in our cabinet workshop is going through some of the different types of vanities and cabinets. I feel like this is a pretty overwhelming process if you have no idea the differences between any of them. It took me a while to sort through it, so we'll talk through some of that tonight, as well as getting into a little bit of the cost breakdown. And then we'll go into how to actually install the cabinets, which this is the fun stuff, right? Doing the hands-on work. And then, of course, I'll give you a tool list for what you would need to do the project yourself at home. And then we'll talk a little bit about options for finishing, kind of the steps you would go through to refinish. And then I have a chart that kind of breaks down what different finishing types are and why you might want those as your choice. And then we'll go into changing cabinet hardware, which is an easy but good bang for your buck thing to know how to do. So let's jump right in. So like I said, I was pretty overwhelmed looking at like if you just Google cabinets, like everything that comes up and kind of how to start sorting through that. So I thought that this might be a good thing to just help us look at as we're kind of planning out our project or dreaming of our new kitchen, what kind of things we want to consider. And of course, all of these are factors, but what we're looking for is a balance between all of these things. So obviously, like a budget is important because we have to be able to afford it, right? But that's just as important as, let's say, the style of the cabinets. Why spend money if you don't actually like those cabinets, right? So I thought that this might be helpful to kind of think through some of the different, things to consider. And then this is also partly what makes cabinets different from each other. So the cost, the availability, what kind of features. There's like soft closing drawers or like organizational things in them. All of this is stuff to consider when figuring out what kind of cabinets you need. So there's kind of three different broad categories of cabinets. The first one is stock cabinets. The second one is semi-stock, and then the last one is custom. So those are kind of like three broad categories. And then of course, within each category, there's more features that distinguish them. So essentially stock cabinets, these are going to be like your most basic, your most economical choice. So these are going to be on the cheaper side. And this is basically like if you walk into Lowe's or Home Depot and you see these are the cabinets that they have that are pretty much always in stock. They probably come in like three colors, like a white, a gray, and a brown, right? So if you need something right away, like you're like, oh, I'm redoing my kitchen today, it's happening right now, you're going to need something that's actually available right now. So these stock cabinets, like I said, they're usually in the store, or if not, they're in a warehouse that can get to the store in like a couple of days, not a couple of weeks or months. So the way that they're able to do this is they're basically pre-built and they come in standard sizes. So like I have pictured here a wall, like so an upper cabinet that's 30 inches by 30 inches by 12, which is like a very standard size cabinet. So let's say you needed something special. They probably don't have that in like the in-stock store brand. So that's the benefit is it's always available and it's pretty cheap. The downside is, like I said, you don't have that option to get a custom size. And then there's usually a little bit limited variety. So maybe you're like, oh, I want a brown, but I don't like the light brown. I was going for a darker brown. Well, you might have to look into like the next bump up in cabinets. So sometimes these stock cabinets, they also come in what's called an RTA, which is a ready to assemble. And that basically means it comes like in like sections and then you put it together at home, which isn't too hard. Sometimes we do that for our cabinets at Habitat in Durham. So it's not hard, but it is an extra step. So like timing of your project might be a little bit, yeah, slower if you have to build them yourself, right? And then I did put down here just like a few prices. So for this upper wall cabinet that's 30 by 30, these were some of the prices and brands, just like, you know, the in stock at the store. And then some of the like Allen and Roth and Valleywood, those would be like the brand names. I didn't actually get a price on those, but so that's like a ballpark. And then as we go into the semi-stock, I'm comparing the price with the same size cabinet in the same color. So we kind of get an idea of like what that price jump is to the next cabinet. And then, right, we would need to multiply this kind of price for our whole kitchen. Like if we have, you know, let's say 4 upper cabinets and 4 lower cabinets, it's just like a single wall kitchen, great. If we have a wraparound that's like 12 uppers and 12 base cabinets, that price can start to add up quickly. So we'll just keep that in mind as we're thinking through these different cabinet types. Okay, so the semi-custom, this is like one step up from the stock cabinets. So it's similar in the fact that it still comes in the semi like standard sizes for the industry. But you do start to have more variety of not only finishes, but also like colors and stuff like that. So this is how you can start to customize it by having a bit more choice in what those cabinets look like, but you're not quite at that like full custom cabinet level. So this is kind of in between our price points of the, you know, fancy custom cabinets and the right off the shelf cabinets. And then with this, the availability does change as well. So this is about 4 to 8 weeks for delivery for these cabinets. So because we want to be able to pick out the colors of them and the finish of it, it's going to take a little bit more time to get the specific cabinets that we need to us. And then, you know, that 4 to 8 week window, I feel like that's a pretty big window, but obviously stuff like COVID and building booms affect this. Like sometimes our cabinets are there right away for us when we're ready to install them. And then sometimes we have to wait weeks if there's any kind of like manufacturing delay, or, you know, like right now there's a lot of building going on, a lot of people wanting cabinets. So if you can't get them right away, it's not a big deal. They're still going to make them. It's just a matter of planning it out. And so I thought that this was an important thing just to consider in your project. Like if you're doing it yourself and you plan off, let's say Labor Day weekend to redo your kitchen, but your cabinets aren't available until October, that puts a bump in it, right? Or if you're working with a contractor and you have them, you know, ready to start right away, but they're going to be waiting a few weeks for cabinets. So this is just something to think about. And most of these stores, you can also look online and just kind of get an idea of, like this first one, this Luxe Cabinetry, they can ship it the next day. Okay, that's really good to know. I know I don't need 8 weeks for that one, but maybe some of the other ones, they're back ordered or whatever. So, you know, just make sure we're looking at this as we're ordering our cabinets and kind of planning out what we need. Okay, any questions on those? I'm gonna keep rolling, but just, you know.
Caitie, is the cabinet install, like say you're doing a bathroom or kitchen remodel, is the cabinet install like one of the last things that you'll do? Or could it be? I guess could it be? Like, so let's say there's like a 4-week delay, but you want to keep going on your project.
Yeah, it kind of just depends on what you're doing. I mean, we kind of put them in, at least in the habitat here, how we do it, we kind of do it early in the process, like right after we have drywall, and then we like paint around it and we do our flooring around it, like once the cabinets are already in place. But there's kind of, you know, different schools of thoughts. Like you could totally do, like, let's say you're redoing the flooring, you could do that, get your toilet set, and then just set your vanity or your base cabinets on top of that. I think it functionally is the same. So let's say, yeah, if you're in the middle of a project and you don't want to wait, you can paint it and then hang a upper cabinet. It's not going to hurt anything, right? So I think it's, yeah, kind of interchangeable, if that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. And then these are the fancy ones. I had fun like Googling pictures of custom cabinets, right? So this is kind of exactly what you think of, like any kind of custom situation where you have like a specific vision of what you want. There's definitely somebody out there who makes it. All kinds of styles of like finishes, paints, varnishes, all of that, which is really cool. It is going to cost you, and I can tell you that because it was really hard for me to even get a like any kind of number on this, because most like websites to go and order cabinets, like you have to like contact them and get a quote, which means they probably want to work with you and like do your whole kitchen layout. And that's also really nice, right? It takes some of the guesswork out of it on our end. Like if we have, you know, kind of a funky shaped house or an older house, or, you know, we just want to do something cool like this bottom picture here, like this is awesome. It's got ovens built into the walls. Like this one's got cabinets wrapping around. So it, you know, you can do all kinds of stuff with it, but yeah, it's going to be pricier and it is going to take more time. Like we said, the availability and pricing are kind of the big things that determine, you know, what kind of level of cabinets we're in here. And then I also think like the custom cabinets come with like a ton of more features that I got a couple pictures of here. So if you really are like decking out your kitchen, there's all kinds of like spice racks, and I've never seen this one with the pots and pans before, but you know, just like features like that that organize it. And like I said before, this might be like soft closing drawers. This could be yeah, like in this picture it comes, you know, they look like they're taller, so they go all the way to the ceiling, and then you can do crown molding. So if you're really going for this like high-end detailed look, the custom cabinets might be the way to go for you. Let's see, I think I covered everything on that. Yeah. Okay. So then I thought we would go into the bathroom vanities, and I got a cool video for this that I think kind of succinctly says how to install it. But, you know, essentially our vanity is like the same as a base cabinet, but this one is meant to go in our bathroom, and it usually comes with some kind of countertop that sits right on top of it. And these also come in standard sizes. So like if there's a like a common base cabinet is a 36, right? 36 inches. So they'll make a vanity top that's 37 inches. That's the standard size. So it'll hang off half an inch on either side. You can drop it in and you don't have to like cut it to fit or anything weird like that, right? And then there are also different styles. So I put, you know, a couple different ones. This bottom right, this is like, this would match like our kitchen cabinet base really well. Obviously we could go for something a little more sleek, like a pedestal sink, or this kind of like modern look that has shelf and storage. And so, you know, I put a few of the different, you know, like I guess types of vanities, and then obviously within each one of those, the cost will vary a little bit. And I think we'll just go ahead and watch this video to do the install, and then I can answer any questions or kind of recap the video. Playing at the end, okay.
Is there supposed to be sound, Caitie?
Oh yeah. No sound?
I don't hear any. Can you hear it on your side?
Yeah, I'm hearing it on my side. Let's see.
Yeah, I don't hear it either.
No? Okay.
Me either.
Okay, well that's good. It's all the same. Oh, I have to share my sound. Okay. Let me try that again. Thanks for saying.
We've been remodeling this
There you go,
bathroom
there you go.
and it's really coming together. Now it's time for the new sink and vanity. We splurged a little on ours, but you can find options to fit your budget and style.
Now, putting in a new sink and vanity is really easy, but if you're planning on rerouting plumbing, you might want to call a plumber in for that part.
And if the space you're working in is tight, take some measurements to make sure your new vanity will fit.
And once you have an idea on size, make sure you look at all the styles and options at Lowe's. Now, when we started our project, the bathroom looked like this. We're doing a total bathroom remodel, which meant taking out everything to the wall studs. Of course, that meant removing the old vanity. Here's how we did it.
We started by turning off the water supply and turning on the faucet to release any pressure in the lines. Then we loosened the slip knot at the top of the P-trap. You may have to remove the entire trap. We disconnected the water lines from the valves. Then we cut the sealant along the backsplash with a utility knife. You might have to tug on the sink top to get it loose. We used a chisel and hammer to separate ours from the base, but do this from the inside if you're going to reuse the vanity. Once the top was off, we removed the screws from the back of the vanity and pulled it out.
So, our vanity's out and the walls are finished. If you need to repair any of your walls, now's the time to do it. Once you've done that, it's time to install.
Start by marking the height of the vanity on the wall in 3 different locations, then mark the width on the wall. Now you should have a rough outline for the new vanity. Use a stud finder to locate and mark the wall studs inside the outlined area. If your new vanity has a back, measure the distance from the wall marks to the pipes. Translate these measurements to the new vanity back and cut the pipe holes with the hole saw. Move the vanity into place, lining up the marks. Check that it's level and make adjustments if needed.
Once the base is level, drill a pilot hole at the nearest stud. For holes not in line with studs, you have to use wall anchors. Use a type that's made for your wall surface, tile, plaster, or drywall. Now you can attach the cabinet with screws.
On to part 2, the sink. Go ahead and assemble the sink while it's out, starting with the faucet and the sink drain. Once done, add a thin bead of silicone adhesive to the rim of the vanity. Be careful not to get it on the face. The sink top is ready to go on. This is a 2-person job. Place the assembled sink on the vanity top and press firmly in place. Then, let the adhesive cure according to the directions. Once it's dried, reconnect the water supply lines and the drain. You might need to cut the tail piece with a hacksaw to make it fit. Now apply a bead of caulk along the back edge against the wall and clean up any excess. Turn on the water to test for leaks and you're good to go.
Now this is a step in the right direction. This vanity looks great.
See the rest of our bathroom?
Okay. Very cool.
Caitie, I have a quick question.
Yeah, go for it.
I think that's actually really super helpful. So thank you for showing that. I think they did things though, like they either sheetrocked or they removed the tile, and then I think they moved to the plumbing.
Yeah, or
Okay.
at least it looked, or at least it was not the same in the video, like before and after.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I just wanted to check.
Yeah, I'm
Because
not
that
sure.
really is just the piece about installing the vanity. They weren't trying to teach us how to do plumbing or tile.
No,
Okay.
yeah, they were just kind of covering the vanity. Yeah, I guess moving the plumbing would be kind of a whole different ball game, but yeah.
There's probably another YouTube video out there for that though. So
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I thought it was just helpful to kind of go through like what to do with the pipes, and when you were at the point of installing the vanity, our plumbing should be set. So like if you do need to move the plumbing, which it sounds like you might, that should be a before. And then once you have those pipes like actually coming out of the wall, or sometimes they come out of the floor, like in the kitchen, they usually come out of the floor. And then you can figure out how to do the cutouts. And I'll cover that a little bit more in the, the kitchen cabinet base, how to install those. But, essentially like you just want to find whatever the midpoint of your pipe is what I use. And then like, let's say it's a 2-inch pipe, like you can cut a hole that's a little bit bigger than that, like a 2 1/4 hole saw, or even a 2 1/2. And then a lot of the plumbing connections, like it'll have like a little pipe sleeve that goes over it. So if you cut a bigger hole, it gives you a little bit more wiggle room when you go to actually install the vanity, which I thought is, helpful to kind of think through that. And then
you don't want too large a hole, right? Because then it would have room to rattle around, right?
Right. You
Okay.
don't want too big of a hole, but just enough. Like I've definitely tried to use like a 2-inch hole saw and a 2-inch pipe. And like if you're off even a little bit, then you're trying to force it, and then either your cabinet or vanity doesn't go in square to the wall, or you're like moving your pipe in the wall by pushing it. So
Yeah, which would put too much pressure on the piping, on the pipes. So, okay,
right.
thank
So we're
you.
looking for that sweet spot. So maybe like a 1/4 inch, like a 2 1/4 for a 2-inch pipe is enough wiggle room kind of all the way around it. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then the other step that I like that they covered is like using a razor knife to break the seal on that caulk behind the vanity. So we don't think of like the caulk as having a lot of like structural integrity, but it does adhere to the wall, and it is what we're using to adhere the vanity top to the vanity itself. So when we break that seal ahead of time, it's just going to come out a lot cleaner. If we just start like ripping it off, then there's a chance that it would like peel off some of your drywall, and then you have like a drywall patch to do. So that's an easy step. And then it'll actually like, once you cut it, you can use like a little putty knife and scrape off any of the remaining like caulk or silicone from the vanity and from the wall. It'll come off like so much cleaner if you cut it first. So
Yeah, that was really helpful.
yeah, there's my my 2 cents on that. I was glad that was in that video. And then we'll talk more about like some of the specifics for install. So if you still have some wonderings, I do have more on the installing part, and I'll talk about the screws and shimming and stuff in a little bit. Okay, and then I just put in a few different vanity styles because there's a lot more options than just like the plain base cabinet that we've been looking at. So some of these features now have double sinks, and then I like the vanities that have good storage. So having a couple of drawers, but these all they'll all have storage options, but there's lots of cool styles. So I put in a couple so you can just open your view a little bit to those. Okay, and then this is getting into talking about some of the different finishes, which there's like a ton of different options out there for this as well, but I thought some of these like broad categories would be a helpful place to start. So, of course, there's like stains and paints. That's primarily like what we're using to bring color to our cabinets. And this is something like if you don't have the budget to go out and like redo all of your cabinets, buy new cabinets, you're not comfortable with doing the project on your own, refinishing is a great option. Like you can totally change the color of your cabinets, you can change the shine, the sheen on it, and that'll bring a whole new look to your kitchen, right? And then you could also go like a natural route where especially if you have nice kind of wood cabinets, maybe an older house that has cabinets already in place, you can just do like a clear coat over it that would add the protection to it, right? So it would add a finish, but you could just see the natural color underneath. So that's kind of a nice option. And then this like varnished look here, this is using a polyurethane top coat. And this is great for a kitchen because it's very durable and also heat resistant. So this is something that, yeah, like I said, would be beneficial in a kitchen. Also prevents discoloring. So, any area where you're cooking, you could assume like, okay, maybe there's going to be some smoke or just heat could cause discoloration. So knowing that varnish would provide some, extra durability to your cabinets. And a lot of these, like the varnish, like after it's applied, it'll take a certain amount of time to kind of harden or cure. And this is also going to be the same case for like providing like resistance to scratching or you know, like getting like dents and nicks in it, is just allowing that proper time to kind of cure before you get in there and, you know, start cooking and going crazy and putting your plates and everything in. So, you know, if you do the refinishing option, make sure you're kind of taking the time to, yeah, let it all set up. And I have a little bit more about refinishing as well, but this is just kind of to go through the different styles. And then
Sorry, Katie, the ones that come like from Lowe's that are like they're ready to go, like the one you showed earlier for like the $152, those are ready to go, right? You don't have to refinish those in
right,
general?
correct.
Okay.
Correct. Those are ready to go. So those are usually, I don't know actually like what category those would fall into, but they do have, you know, some kind of color coat, and then they have a top coat as well. So they
Okay.
do have, you know, a bit of that protection in terms of like the scratch resistance and the, you know, heat resistance like that. They're already finished. They're ready to go. Correct. If you like bought that cabinet and then 10 years later you want to refinish it, you could if you wanted to.
Thank you.
And then this distressed look, I put this in. This is like kind of a newer thing, I guess, is you kind of like use paint to paint it on, and then you like wipe away parts so it looks kind of like aged and like it's wearing, which is kind of funny to have a new thing that looks old, but that's the trend these days. So that's a cool option too. And it, you know, it's definitely like a lot more unique than just a plain cabinet color. So that's how you could, you know, do a distressed look. And I have the steps for refinishing these in a little bit. Oh, it's right here. Okay, great. It's almost like I planned it that way. Okay, so if you actually wanted to do the refinishing, we'll talk through kind of the steps to doing that. So first, we're going to remove basically anything that's not attached to the wall, right? So this would be our drawers, any of our hardware. We could take the doors off the cabinets and lay them down on a table like they are here. It's so much easier to work and to get into all the grooves if you're not like up on a ladder, like in the ceiling of your room, right? So take all of that off first. If there's any spots that need to be patched up or touched up in any way, this would be a good time to do that. So like you can see here, they took their hardware off, so they're probably planning to switch out the hardware. All of these holes, we can go ahead and putty those, sand them down in this process of refinishing. And then they recommend using what's called TSP to remove or to wash your cabinets. And that stands for trisodium phosphate. And it's basically like a heavy duty clean. Is really good at removing grease, smoke, mold and mildew, anything like that. I think you can also use this to like clean your decks. So it's a pretty powerful cleaner, but this is like across the board. Everybody is recommending using this to clean them. So just like this, you can get a sponge or a rag and just literally wipe down all the surfaces. You want to make sure you're getting into all of these grooves, all the corners, edges, right? So it can be a kind of a tedious process, but a pretty important step, right? So once we've got it cleaned, then we're going to start to sand our cabinets. And the goal with this is, like it says here, we're trying to remove that clear glossy finish, like get that top coat off. So like if you can kind of see this picture, we're trying to sand all this down and get to kind of the base layer underneath it, right? So if we don't get it sanded, it's not going to soak up the new thing that we put into it, right? And we also want to just have like a really nice clean surface, even if we're, you know, like let's say we're not staining, so it doesn't really need to get into the grains of the wood. But when we're painting something, if we have like two different surfaces underneath our paint, you're going to be able to tell that when you paint it. So you want to make sure you're getting like a nice, smooth, even surface, right? And then if there are any areas like that you have like peeling paints or anything like that, you want to get all that peeling paint off. Like I said, any kind of chips or like level changes, we don't want to be able to see that through. And then I put this in here too, like feathering the edges. So let's say like I have my cabinet door here and I have like one splotch of paint in the middle. If you can't get that all the way sanded off, feathering the edges is basically just like blending it. So even if you do have a spot here and it's different here, instead of having like a ridge right in the middle, I'm going to just try to like blend that as best as possible, right? So that would be an option, like if you can't, for whatever reason, get that paint to come off.
Katie, is this all hand sanding on like cabinet doors, and would this apply to like regular doors too?
I think that you could use like an orbital sander or something, but all these grooves, you would probably have to do a good amount of that by hand, unless you could, I don't know, find something that would get into the grooves. But those are so specific that I think you'd be better off doing hand sanding for the grooves.
That
and
makes
then
sense.
using
Thanks.
Orbital for the big surfaces, yeah. Okay, and then this is also a pretty crucial step, but we want to vacuum or wipe off our surfaces again after we sand it. So we're not doing like the deep clean with chemicals, but we need to get all of that dust, any debris, any paint chips or whatever. I want all of that off. So I would vacuum and wipe it off just to be safe, because we don't want that showing up in like our varnish or our stain when we go to reapply that, right? To make sure they're nice and clean, and then we can put on our new finish. So I think most everything is going to be 2 coats, if not 3. So that's pretty standard. Don't think you're going to get it in one. But with that being said, you want to do like a good job and a full job each coat. So when you go to do that first coat, you want to make sure you're getting in all of those grooves, covering the entire door, and you're going to do that 3 times. So, you know, it's not like you can be sloppy on the first one and you'll get it by the end of 3. We want to make sure we get in there nice and good, all 3 coats, and then make sure you let it fully dry in between coats. So this is going to be totally dependent on, you know, whatever kind of finish you're using. But if it says it needs 24 hours, give it a full 24 hours, right? Don't cheat that drying time. Otherwise, it could kind of mess with how the finish turns out in the end, right? So don't skip that step. If you're doing so much work, like just give it the rest time. That's your rest time too. And then I just included an article down here that kind of goes through some more of the details, and that's where I found this picture from. So it's got like a ton of information too about like what kind of sandpaper, what kind of paint, all of that kind of stuff. So I'll let y'all read through that to find out some more of your specific questions. But any questions on this before we keep rolling?
How do we get to the article?
Oh, you can just click the link. This orange here is the link, and Tracy's going to send out the PowerPoint tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's not letting us, but that's okay.
Oh, yeah. She'll send you the actual PowerPoint. So you'll have all of this for your reference as well.
Thanks, Katie.
Yeah. Okay, so I think I mentioned the RTA, the ready to assemble cabinets in a previous slide, but I thought it would be helpful to just kind of see what that looks like in case you go this route. It's not as overwhelming as it seems, but basically it comes to you in like a flat box, and it's just got like sheets that make up your cabinet. So it's got a back panel, 2 side panels, a front panel frame, all of that. And then, you know, these are some of the technical terms, and it comes with directions and everything, but really they go together with these kind of like screw lock things that I have pictured here. And they're basically already attached to the panel, and there's grooves in the panel. So it'll tell you like lay the front panel down, and then you use glue in these grooves. Okay, put your side panel on, and then you do like half a turn of this screw, and that's what locks it into place. Put your other side panel on, half a turn on that, and it locks it into place. So you basically just go through that and build essentially a box to put it together. And then they come with like these little corner square things that kind of reinforce the cabinet corners. And I mean, it's essentially the exact same thing as what you get for like the stock cabinets, but this might give you an option to kind of speed up how quickly you can get something, or if you want something in a different color, maybe it only comes in this like ready to assemble version. But it's not too bad to put them all together. So when we have this at our Habitat affiliate, there's one color that only comes in the ready to assemble, and we can still build them all and put them all in a single day. That's with like 2 or 3 of us who know what we're doing, but it's not a as difficult as it sounds. So if you see that, that's what's going on, and you can totally do it. Really the only tools you need is these are either a Phillips or a flathead screwdriver. You don't even need a drill, just a screwdriver, and then some glue. And I usually have like a kind of like a soft rubber mallet to just tap on stuff and make sure you get it all the way in place, and you're good to go. Okay, so now kind of moving into the cabinet install and the process for that. So I got a list of tools over here, as well as talking about some of the prep work that we would need to do. So I think like the biggest part in the preparation for install is making sure you know your layout and your starting point. So hopefully the layout is like if you took out a kitchen cabinet or like took out all of the cabinets, you kind of already know what the layout was. So if you're just going to follow that same layout, you already have all the information you need. If you took out a 30 by 30 cabinet in the left corner and you're putting one right back, great, right? All the guesswork's out of it, and you already know the layout. If you're designing a layout, you want to make sure you have that, figured out, and obviously you would have that figured out because you'd also have all the correct cabinets. So double check for that first, and then figure out where you're going to start. So if we're just doing wall-to-wall cabinets, I just like default start in my left-hand corner. If I know I have some like funky spacing, like let's say I have a kitchen window like centered in the wall, and I want to make sure my cabinets are the same space away from that window. Then you could start with those 2 cabinets and work out towards the corners from there. That would be fine as well. Just good to kind of figure that out ahead of time, right? So then to start, you can also remove all of the cabinet doors. This will help, which you'll see in the next slide, but we're going to join the cabinets together as we put them up on the wall. So if you just take all the doors off ahead of time, it'll save you some time when you're holding them up on the wall. Okay, and then you can also use a ledger board, which is in this picture here. And this is basically going to be a board that's at the height I want my cabinets to be at, and it's already level. And this way, when I go to actually put my cabinet up on the wall, it has something to rest on. Otherwise, you have to just stand there and hold it up, which is fine. You can absolutely do that if you have, at least you plus another person, if not 2 other people. So it kind of just depends on, how many people you have doing this project, but there's really no way you can hold the cabinet and screw it into the wall by yourself. So the ledger board is just a way to make it a lot easier. And then another trick, like they showed in the vanity video, if you find your studs ahead of time, when you're like up there holding on to this cabinet, you don't want to be like drilling over and over and over again, like hoping you hit a stud, right? This is holding, our fine china, all of our canned goods, whatever. We want to make sure that it's like solid in the wall, right? So find those studs ahead of time. Okay, and then, oh, you got a question?
I was just gonna say, I think the ledger board is a brilliant idea.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've done it with and without, would highly recommend.
I have a question
Um,
about the ledger board.
yeah,
So it's great to use as a guide to hang the cabinets, but then you take it off afterward, correct?
correct.
And
I did not say that, but that is a crucial detail. Yes, you take this off afterwards. So that being said, you don't want to like nail or screw the heck out of it. You want to put in a couple to hold it. And then, yeah, something that like ideally screws, like if we put maybe 2 or 3 going across our wall that we can pull out and just putty those holes. But yes, good question. I forgot to say that.
great, great, thank you.
Yeah. So in terms of kind of the tools and materials we would need to do our cabinets, you will need a drill, so like a battery powered drill, a level to make sure everything's going up level and plumb, and then some clamps, which I have one pictured here. This is going to be for securing the cabinets together, which we'll see in the next slide. And then it's always good to have a screwdriver and rubber mallet, just in case. The rubber mallet more so for the ready to assemble ones, but the screwdrivers are great for this bottom right picture over here is the door hardware. And the screwdriver is great for that because you don't need like a ton of power. It's just like a short screw, so a screwdriver is totally sufficient. Okay, and then obviously we'll need our cabinets. We'll need our shims, which are like the slivers of wood that they showed briefly in the vanity video about like, we're gonna use these to make sure everything's level and plumb and has no gaps. And I have another video in a second that'll show more of this. But then I put links to both of these, which when you get the PowerPoint, you can click on it and it'll take you to these screws so you can see it in more detail. But basically this bottom left is our cabinet mounting screw. And it basically has like a wider head on the top of it. And this is important because when we're driving this into our cabinet, the larger surface area is going to make sure that it's actually like holding the cabinet a lot better than a screw head with like a really tiny head that doesn't have a lot of bite. So I like that. And then one other thing that I would recommend with these screws is sometimes they come in like a Phillips head bit, which can be really hard to actually drive it into the wall. So I like to get the ones that have a star bit, which is, it's basically just got more angles in the screw. So it's easier to sink that screw in. That all makes sense, but those are, that's my recommendation for the cabinet mounting screws. And then this other screw package here, these are for joining the cabinets together. And these are great because, well, one, they come in different sizes. So they come in like 2 inches, 1.5 inches, but they're pretty skinny and they have basically no head on it, which is great because we just want it to be going through our cabinet doors to bind it together. But we don't want a big head that's going to stick out. So it's kind of like the whole opposite of the mounting screws. Whoops. But that's the benefit to this. And this is also a star bit, which I love. And they come with bits in the packs. So you can't beat that. Okay, so getting into our install, I think we'll just, I'm going to just go ahead and play the video first and then wait a second. I don't know if that took me. Dang it. I don't think my link is working, so I'll have to switch that before I before you send out the PowerPoint, Tracy. I'll have to look at that again. I'm going to tell you how to install the cabinets. Okay, so first thing we'll do to start, it's always better to start with your upper cabinets, basically because it's easier to hold them in place and work on them without all this stuff on the floor in our way. So start with your upper cabinets. and figure out what your reference line is. So typically this is 54 inches above the floor. You know, sometimes people will go all the way tight to the cabinet. Sometimes you'll have a gap, tight to the ceiling. Sometimes there'll be a gap between the ceiling and the cabinet. Really what we're looking for is the sweet spot of having clearance between the countertop and the bottom of the cabinet, which is ideally 18 inches. So we want that room so we have room to work, but we also want to be able to reach into our cabinets. So, you know, if we put it like all the way tight to our ceiling and there's 30 inches of space, we might only be able to reach barely the bottom shelf, right? So these numbers are kind of like the standard for installing cabinets. The one exception would be if you have any like handicap accessibility, the countertops would be lower and the cabinets themselves would be lower. So that's the only thing that would really change this. So this is how I would figure out the height of my ledger board, right? So if I want them 54 inches off the floor, the top of my ledger board here would need to be at that 54 inches, and then my cabinets go on top of it, right? So we're gonna hang our first cabinet. I'm gonna default start in my left-hand corner. I'm gonna get it into the wall, and then make sure it's level and make sure it's plumb. So that would be checking my level going horizontally, and then up vertically, I would put it on, you know, the side of the cabinet here and make sure it's in this direction level, which is called plumb, right? So if there was any changes that I needed to make with this, this is where the shimming would come in handy. And unfortunately, my link isn't working, but I do have one for the base cabinets that we can watch. And basically the points that you would need to shim are kind of behind the wall here, or potentially like on the back of the cabinet where it's into the wall. You could also need to shim it there, if that makes sense. So once I have it level and plumb, I'm gonna go ahead and screw it in. And you don't have to sink these screws all the way. We can get them so they're holding the cabinet up, but also we have a little bit of wiggle room. The reason being is we want to combine our cabinets, like connect them as these clamps are showing here. So once I have that first one kind of semi-screwed in, I'll get the second one, do the same process, level it, screw it, or level and plumb it, get my screws started in it, so it's holding the weight, and then I can use my clamps to join them together, make sure there's no gap in between them right here where the cabinets join, put those small skinny screws in, and make sure like the face of my cabinets are all nice and flush. And then, you know, I can kind of go through this whole process like this guy is doing, go through with each cabinet, make sure I have it all the way good, and then I can go back and sink those screws all the way, the cabinet mounting screws. So the reason we don't want to do that all the way is just so we have a little bit of play to get this nice and flush, okay? And then, yep, go ahead and sink all those screws and you would be good to go.
You make it sound so easy.
Yeah, I have a bad habit of doing that.
You've done it a time or two, I'm sure.
Yeah, I've done it a few times. Let's see if this video works. The base cabinets. Okay, here we go.
In this video, we'll show you how to install base cabinets. If you haven't already watched the measure and prep video, do that first. And remember, if you plan on installing a floating floor as part of your kitchen project, the cabinets go in first, but must be raised to a height just above the flooring. Otherwise, you might have trouble installing under countertop appliances. You can cut plywood strips that are the thickness of the floor and underlayment. Here's a trick. Before you screw down the strips, level them with shims. This will make the install much easier. It's also easier if you remove the doors and drawers. Then, just like installing the wall cabinets, start at a corner. Use the guides on the walls to transfer the stud locations to the cabinets, accounting for the face frame. Drill the holes and set the corner cab in place. the horizontal line is your main guide. Line up the top, shim underneath the base and at the back to get it level and plumb. If the wall is extremely bowed, shims can help keep the cabinet square and fill the space between the base and wall. When it looks good, drive in the screws at the back, just enough to hold it for now. You'll tighten them later. For the next cabinet, drill the pilot holes through the back and position the cabinet next to the first. Even up the faces, shimming where needed, and clamp the faces together. Drive screws in the back just to hold it for now. Next, drill pilot holes with a countersink taper bit through the face frames and connect the cabinets with number 8 screws. And that's the gist of it. Here's a tip if your wall is bowed. Glue shims over the stud lines where you'll secure the mounting screws. This will prevent the cabinet backs from bowing when you drive in the screws. To even up the cabinet tops near the wall, you'll need to shim under the cabinet base against the wall. You can use the shim under the adjacent cabinet as a guide. When you cut that shim, cut another for the next cabinet and leave it in place. Where you have plumbing or gas, cut the holes in the back of the cabinet and install like the rest. Continue installing, but don't tighten the rear screws yet. Remember to keep the faces even and the tops lined up with your reference line. Alright, so what about that space at the end? Easy fix with a filler strip. Just mark and cut it. For uneven walls, clamp the filler piece to the frame. Use a compass to scribe a line following the contours of the wall. And it helps to cut at a 7 to 10 degree bevel to help fit the piece against the wall. Mark the width of the piece and cut the cabinet side. Use a plane for minor adjustments. Place the piece, drill holes through the frame, and attach with screws. Once you have all the cabinets in, tighten the rear screws and remove the clamps. Any places where you don't have a cabinet frame to support the countertop, like end walls and corners, attach 1x2s with screws. After your cabinets are secured, cut toe kicks to fit and attach with finish nails. For floating floors, do this after they're installed. Don't add the doors and drawers just yet. You still have to attach the countertops. Want more great ideas and how-tos?
Okay, that video really packs it in there. So hopefully we kind of understand the process. It's basically the same thing as the upper cabinets, right? The same steps of shimming it, screwing it, clamping them together. I thought this video was helpful that it kind of covered what to do with your floor situation. So like Susan, you asked, can you do it before or after? And yeah, there's different schools of thought. Like some places, you know, tell you put the cabinets in and then do your flooring right up to the cabinets. I like that this video said to kind of raise it up a little bit. So, you know, like if you're just doing a bathroom, it's totally fine, I think, to just go ahead and do the same flooring all the way under it, because you might as well. It's really only like a 36-inch space of flooring that wouldn't have flooring. And this way, like if you ever needed to change the vanity in the future, there's already flooring underneath it, which is really nice. That would be the only downside of kind of doing it how they said in this video of like, you know, spacing it out for the floor. But now if you ever redo the kitchen and get a different size cabinet, you could potentially need to add or remove flooring if it's not the exact same size. So
Katie, when they're talking about the floating flooring, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's okay.
When they're talking about the floating flooring, are they talking about like the LVT, the luxury vinyl?
Yeah, that's like the
Tile, that type
vinyl
stuff.
plank flooring, like the tongue and groove snap together stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what they're talking about for that one. Yep. And then yeah, this picture and the video kind of went through some of the different places that you would need a shim. That could be on the floor, that could be behind the cabinets. And then I like to put my screw like this person is doing, just right through the shim, because sometimes if I screw like over here, my shim can actually like fall down too much.
I was going to ask that. Yeah.
Yeah, if you just screw right through it, it's easy. And then when you take that razor knife like they did in the video and actually cut it, then it'll stay in place, because sometimes like you try to cut it and then it moves or it doesn't stay in there anymore. So I just screw it right through my shim and that works well. And then I said I like had some more information on the pipes, and I thought that this picture here was helpful to just kind of think through the steps of it. So like I said, like I kind of find the center point of that pipe. That would be like horizontally and vertically, get the cross section, and then that's where I go to drill. And then this one that's in the kitchen cabinet here, that shows the pipes from the bottom. It's the exact same process. It's just a little bit more nerve-wracking doing it on the bottom for some reason. So I think it's easiest to kind of flip it over and just like drill through the bottom to the top, because it's really hard to transfer the measurements from outside the cabinet on the floor to inside the cabinet, because you have the cabinet wall, and then sometimes there's that like there's like a little spacer on the front here, so it's really hard for me at least to get those numbers right. So I like to just cut it from the bottom on the floor, like put my measurements on the base of the cabinet. Okay, any questions on the install? Kind of a fun process, you know, like you see this guy making sure it's level in all the directions, right? And then they also went through some of this in that last video, but this toe kick, it's basically like a finished looking panel that goes on the cabinets. So prior to this, it's kind of, you can see like all the joints in the cabinet on the bottom. And then this just gives you like a nice smooth look that kind of carries across all of your cabinets. And then for the sides, I like, oh wait, one more thing on the toe kicks. You can get these that match like with your cabinets. So when you order them or pick them up from the store, they'll come with a toe kick that like matches this cabinet. You just have to remember to get that. Or same thing if you're ordering and it's like, oh, you have 16 feet of toe kick. We'll add that in and make sure you get the color match, right? And then on the sides, if it doesn't end at a wall, you can use a quarter round piece like they did here, and then just cut a return, which is basically like, instead of it being a 90-degree angle, you can have it be like a 22.5 degree or a 45-degree angle, like with the point matching up at your toe kick and then coming backwards. And this just makes it like less of a harsh corner, which looks kind of nice. So you can use that. And then I thought I would also add in this like touch up and repair kit. So you can also get this, especially if you're ordering like custom or, you know, like the semi-custom cabinets, make sure you get the touch up marker that goes with it. So this like kit comes with a putty stick, so you can like use that to putty anything. And then they have like a couple little sanding pads that will smooth it out. And then the marker basically is like a felt tip, and when you press it in, the color comes out. So you can use that for any kind of like scratches or nicks that you get in your cabinet during the install. I think I got, yeah, and I'll go through the hardware in a second, but just if you didn't order that touch-up marker, there's like a million colors out there, so you can look and like find something that's pretty close. Chances are, like if you have a big scratch in it, if you get a color that's even like remotely close to it, it's going to look better than the scratch, right? Yeah, so then changing the cabinet hardware, this is like a pretty fun, easy project relatively. It still can be a challenge, but this is like a super great option if you don't have the time or money to do the whole kitchen redo or even refinishing. This makes a huge difference. Like you can just look at some of the before and after pictures and you'll know what I'm talking about. So first thing we're going to do for this hardware is just go ahead and remove the old stuff. And then we need to figure out if I'm going to use the same holes or different holes. And this link has a video that goes through that. But basically, you know, if I hold up my piece of hardware to the cabinet holes, I can tell pretty quickly like, oh, that's not the same size, or it is, right? If it's not the same size, no worries. We can go ahead and use this wood filler to putty those holes like here, and then let that dry, sand it down. And then this was what I would use those markers for, to just go ahead and touch it up like they're doing on this bottom right picture. Just go right over my putty hole, no big deal. Then I'll use a drill to drill my new holes. So I put in this picture of this like guide here, and basically what this does is it has pre-measured holes, and then it comes with like a flat, like 2 flat sides. So basically this small skinny rectangular one, this is what I use for a door. So it's already got the placement. I put this up on the bottom and this part on the side, and it'll give me the placement for my holes, and then I just hold it in place and drill right through it. So it's super easy to, like, you don't have to measure out every single hole. That's like really, really tedious, basically. And then this other one is for like the drawers. So you find your center point, line this up on your center point, and especially once you figure out which holes are for your hardware, I like to just like draw a Sharpie circle around that, and then I'll line up my center points, drill through the pre-measured holes, good to go. And definitely test this on one handle first. Make sure it's all good before you do like 30 of them. But this is like $10 and it will like significantly speed up your process. So I would definitely recommend that. And then, yeah, once you got all your holes pre-drilled, you screw them in from the back, and then you end with like a nice, clean, finished, brand new hardware look. So yeah, like I said, there's a video here for this one as well. We're not going to watch it because we're kind of right at our ending time, but I think this is all I had. Yeah, so any questions, feel free to let me know right now.
Sorry, not to be the one to ask all the questions, but on that last slide, you had like a little syringe looking thing. Is that like a little wood filler, or like a, yeah, that last picture there? Is that filling the hole of the old hardware that you removed?
Yeah, I think this is just a touch-up thing. It's kind of hard to tell in this picture, but this looks like the paint. This one.
Oh yeah, okay.
That's the putty stick. It's literally like kind of like clay-y feeling stuff. So that's what you would use to like fill the hole. And then this one I think is more of the marker like this.
I learned a lot. Thank you, Caitie.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'll fix that link, and then Tracy will send this video out to y'all tomorrow. And yeah, you can look at those videos for any more questions.
Yeah, great presentation, Caitie. Thank you. Great questions, Susan.
Thanks, Tracy.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what we want. We want that back and forth and the dialogue. Yeah, it adds a lot to the presentation. So yeah, like Caitie said, I will send a copy of the presentation out along with a link to the video tomorrow. So thank you guys for joining us. Everybody have a good night.
Thanks. See y'all next time.
Bye guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.